There's something many older men don't fully grasp when they enter a relationship with a much younger woman, and it's this: experience is not permission. Wisdom is not a trump card. And age, while it carries value, should never be used as a silent instrument of control. You see, there's a very subtle line between leading with maturity and leveraging it as dominance. And often, without realizing it, older men cross that line. They enter these relationships thinking, I know better. I've lived through more. I can guide her. But here's the truth that often gets ignored. What you call guidance might feel like suppression to her. What you label as protection may register to her as disempowerment. That dynamic is not just problematic, it's deeply unhealthy, even if your intentions are noble. Now, don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with age gap relationships. But the issue arises when the older partner begins to conflate his years with superiority, when he sees himself not as a partner, but as a teacher, when he starts treating her like a project instead of a person. That's when things get dangerous. Because young women, especially those drawn to older men, are often still figuring themselves out. They're exploring identity, values, boundaries. They're open, curious, sometimes uncertain. And that openness can easily be mistaken for submission if you're not careful. Insecurity, disguised as mentorship, becomes a form of psychological control. You start offering unsolicited advice on how she should think, what she should wear, who she should associate with. But here's the question: are you helping her grow? Or are you molding her into someone who fits your comfort zone? It's important to examine your motives. Are you genuinely attracted to her spirit, her mind, her potential? Or are you subconsciously drawn to the control you feel in her company? The lack of resistance, the admiration, the impressionability that makes you feel powerful again. Because for many older men, this isn't about love. It's about relevance. It's about validation. It's about trying to reclaim a sense of significance through someone younger who hasn't yet built the walls that older women often have. Walls that say, you cannot manipulate me. You might think your influence is harmless. But influence becomes manipulation the moment it starts to limit her growth in the name of your comfort. If she feels she cannot speak freely, disagree without tension, or evolve beyond the version of herself that you approve of, that's not a relationship. That's emotional confinement dressed in romance. And the saddest part, many older men don't realize they're doing this. They don't see their words as controlling. They don't see their advice as patronizing. They don't recognize that their insistence on being the wiser one is slowly stripping this woman of her agency. But intention doesn't erase impact. Psychologically, it's easy to fall into this trap. The ego is flattered by admiration. And the younger she is, the more likely she is to admire your experience. But admiration isn't a license to control. It's a responsibility to respect. And if you truly care for her, if your interest is rooted in more than your own validation, then you must understand this fundamental truth. She does not exist to make you feel wise. She does not exist to be shaped into your ideal. She's not a student in your classroom, nor an empty canvas for your philosophies. She is a full human being, growing, questioning, exploring. And your age should empower her, not overpower her. Instead of offering unsolicited lessons, ask better questions. Instead of correcting her, try listening. Instead of assuming she needs direction, give her space to find her own. Because true maturity isn't about proving how much you know. It's about knowing when to step back and let someone else discover their own strength. There is dignity in restraint. There is power in humility. And there is love in letting go of the need to be right all the time. The most attractive quality an older man can bring to a younger woman isn't knowledge. It's emotional safety. And emotional safety only exists where respect lives. If you truly want to love her in a way that honors her youth and your experience, then let go of the idea that you're above her. You're not. You're just further down the road. And if you're wise enough, you'll use your experience to walk beside her, not ahead, not above, but beside her with patience, curiosity, and grace. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to impress her with what you've seen. It's to inspire her to see for herself. And that means letting go of control so that love, real love, has space to breathe. There's a silent danger many older men don't see when they get involved with younger women. And it doesn't come from malice, but but from unresolved pain. It's the unconscious tendency to hand her a burden she never asked for, the responsibility to heal what broke you, to soothe the wounds you've carried for decades, to fill the emotional gaps you've avoided facing on your own. This is more common than you might think. A man reaches a certain age and begins to carry around quiet regrets about the marriage that failed, the career that didn't pan out, the children who feel distant, the years he lost to chasing what never satisfied him. There's a certain loneliness that can settle into a man's soul after 40, and instead of confronting that emptiness, some men go looking for something or someone to fill it. Enter the younger woman. To him, she represents a fresh start, a clean slate, innocence, joy, softness. She becomes a symbol of hope that maybe, just maybe, life hasn't passed him by, that he still matters, that someone still sees value in his presence. And on the surface, this can feel like connection. But scratch just beneath that, and you'll often find projection, not partnership. You're not seeing her for who she is. You're seeing her through the lens of everything you've lost, everything you miss, and everything you wish you could still be. This is where things go wrong, because without realizing it, the older man starts leaning on her emotionally. He starts venting his past, unloading his disappointment, looking to her for validation, reassurance, comfort. She becomes the emotional caretaker in the relationship, not because she's ready, but because she doesn't know how to say no. She wants to love him. She wants to make it work. So she tries, she listens, she nurtures, she comforts. But over time, she begins to feel heavy, tired, like something is always wrong and it's her job to fix it. And that is not love. That is emotional outsourcing. Let's be clear. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable even as a man. In fact, real strength lies in being able to open up. But there's a difference between vulnerability and emotional dependency. Vulnerability is, here's what I've been through, and I'm working on it. Emotional dependency is, here's what I've been through, and I need you to fix it for me. When a younger woman is pulled into that kind of dynamic, she stops growing. She starts managing. She shifts from partner to caretaker, from lover to therapist. And that imbalance eventually becomes resentment, even if she doesn't realize it right away. Because love shouldn't feel like labor, and no woman, young or old, should be expected to carry the emotional weight of a man who refuses to carry his own. It's also important to understand what this does to your relationship long term. At first, she may find it endearing that you open up to her. She may feel special, needed, even chosen. But over time, the emotional floodgates don't stop. And soon, the space where intimacy should grow becomes a dumping ground for your unprocessed pain. There's no room left for her dreams, her fears, her voice, because the entire relationship begins revolving around your healing, your mood, your needs. And that's the paradox. You may be decades older than her, but emotionally, you've made yourself the child in the relationship. She starts parenting a man old enough to be her father. And that reversal of roles is deeply unsettling, even if it's never spoken aloud. It creates confusion, distance, quiet frustration, and eventually disconnection. If you truly care about her, if you enter this relationship with sincerity, you owe it to her and to yourself to examine the emotional weight you're bringing into it. Ask yourself honestly, am I trying to love her, or am I trying to be rescued by her? Am I showing up as a whole person, or am I expecting her to complete the pieces I haven't yet found in myself? Because the truth is, your pain is valid, your past matters, but it's your responsibility to own it, to process it, to heal it, not project it. She didn't cause your scars, and she can't close them. Only you can do that. And when you do, when you step into that healing with maturity, courage, and self-awareness, you stop needing her to be your emotional crutch. You become her equal. You offer her something so rare, so beautiful, a man who doesn't take from her peace to rebuild his own. There is nothing more powerful than a man who's done the work, who's met himself in the mirror, broken and flawed, and said, I will not bleed on someone who didn't cut me. That is real masculinity. That is real love. That is what creates the kind of relationship that both nourishes and inspires, where she can be young, free, expressive without being weighed down by your history. Because if you really love her, don't make her your lifeline. Be her anchor. Be the calm, not the storm. She deserves that. You do too. There's a kind of dishonesty that doesn't come from lying. It comes from over-promising. And when an older man enters a relationship with a younger woman, that dishonesty often shows up not in what he says, but in what he lets her believe. It usually starts innocently. He speaks of a future with conviction, talks about stability, commitment, emotional safety. He knows what to say. He's had years of practice. And she, being young, open-hearted, and perhaps still idealistic, wants to believe it. She believes it because she wants to. She believes it because he seems sure. But here's the question no one ever stops to ask: is he emotionally prepared to deliver on what he's offering? See, the mistake many older men make isn't that they lie outright. It's that they speak from a place of ego, not readiness. They confuse desire with capacity. Just because you want to love someone doesn't mean you're ready to carry what that love requires. Just because you admire her beauty, her energy, her innocence, doesn't mean you have the tools to walk with her through the stages of her growth. And this is where it gets dangerous. Because a young woman, especially one falling for someone older, is often trusting. She sees him as grounded, certain, safe. But over time, she begins to realize that the man who promised clarity is actually unclear within himself. He says he wants long-term, but he's inconsistent. He says he's serious, but emotionally withdrawn. He says she's future, but still lives in the past. His words were full of intention, but empty of readiness. And that kind of disconnect feels like betrayal, even if he didn't mean it that way. Now think about what this does to her. A younger woman still forming her sense of self is impressionable, not in a weak way, but in a beautifully open way. And when you speak to her about building a future, you're not just talking about dates and vacations. You're shaping her mental landscape. You're helping form the lens through which she views love, trust, and commitment. So if you're unsure, if you're emotionally unavailable, if you're still in love with your ex-wife or stuck in past failures, and yet you project an image of stability, you're not just misleading her, you're distorting her emotional framework. The damage here is subtle but deep, because when she starts to see the cracks, when the promises don't line up with your presence, she starts questioning herself. Did I imagine it? Did I move too fast? Is something wrong with me? That kind of self-doubt doesn't just hurt. It lingers. It erodes confidence. And all because a man couldn't admit the simple truth. I'm not ready to build what I said I wanted. There's a deeper layer to this. Many older men are drawn to younger women because they feel more alive in their presence. She brings out their youth, their humor, their ambition. But here's the trap. What you feel around her and what you're capable of giving her may not match. Enjoying her company is not the same as being equipped to nurture her future. If you're chasing a feeling rather than committing to the reality of growth, you'll eventually disappoint both of you. And let's not ignore the power dynamic. She may not always speak up. She may go along with things, not out of full agreement, but out of admiration or confusion, or simply because she doesn't want to seem immature. That silence can be mistaken for consent, but it isn't. You may think everything's fine, that the relationship is flowing, but deep down, she's noticing. She's measuring your words against your actions. She's collecting the contradictions. And when she outgrows the illusion, it'll hit hard. This is why emotional responsibility matters. You must ask yourself before you promise her a future, do I have the capacity to grow with her? Can I hold space for who she is now and who she is becoming? Am I offering her love or offering her a fantasy that comforts my ego but ignores her long-term needs? It takes courage to be honest with yourself, to admit that maybe, right now, you're not ready to build something lasting. And it takes even more strength to communicate that truth with respect. But that honesty is a gift. It protects her from false hope. It preserves her self-worth. And it shows her what real maturity looks like. Because here's the thing. Love isn't about potential. It's about presence. It's not what you say you'll do in 5 years. It's what you're showing up for today. The future isn't built through poetic promises. It's built through consistent character, emotional availability, accountability. If those things aren't in place, no age gap, no charm, no lifestyle can hold the relationship together. A younger woman isn't a second chance at life. She's not a placeholder for your unlived dreams. She's not a fantasy. She's a full human being with a future to protect. And if you're not going to protect it with the kind of love that's grounded, intentional, and consistent, don't involve yourself in her story. Let's talk about something most people avoid when discussing relationships between older men and younger women. And that is control through subtle infantilization. Not in the loud, abusive, dramatic ways we often see in media, but in the quiet, polished, almost gentlemanly way that makes it hard to detect. This kind of control is rarely aggressive. It often looks like protection. It sounds like care. But it feels, over time, like a slow erasure of her independence. Here's how it usually starts. He compliments her potential. He tells her she's brilliant, but still has so much to learn. He offers guidance, advice, a better way to look at things. And to her, especially if she's still finding her voice, it can feel flattering. Here is someone older, more experienced, choosing to invest time and energy into helping her become. But what often goes unnoticed in these dynamics is how quickly that help turns into handling, how encouragement morphs into correction, how a conversation shifts from mutual dialogue to subtle instruction. Suddenly, she finds herself questioning her thoughts before she speaks, filtering her behavior to avoid disapproval, asking for permission rather than sharing her truth. And that's the problem. When an older man unconsciously sees a younger woman not as an equal partner, but as a personal project, the relationship becomes about shaping rather than supporting. It's a form of covert control, wrapped in compliments, disguised as wisdom, delivered with a smile. Now, I want to be clear. There's nothing wrong with wanting to support your partner's growth. That's what love should do. But the question I see, whose vision of growth is being pursued? Hers or yours? Are you guiding her toward the woman she wants to become, or molding her into the woman you're most comfortable with? Because here's the philosophical truth. You cannot love someone while also subtly demanding they become someone else. Real love holds space for evolution, even if that evolution takes your partner in a direction you didn't anticipate. But for many older men in relationships with younger women, there's an unspoken desire to freeze her in time, to keep her pliable, predictable, dependent. And that's not love. It's fear masquerading as devotion. Psychologically, this stems from the ego's need for superiority. When you feel irrelevant in the world, when youth seems to dominate the culture and your age feels like a fading asset, it's tempting to reclaim a sense of importance by being the teacher in a relationship. It gives a false sense of power. You feel needed again. You feel admired. You feel in control. But here's the consequence: if she stops growing, or she starts hiding that growth from you, she reads the room and realizes that the more she thinks for herself, the more tension it creates. So she downplays her opinions. She becomes agreeable, not because she lacks strength, but because she senses that your love is conditional, and conditioned on her staying in a version of herself that keeps your ego comfortable. Over time, this dynamic creates emotional suffocation. It drains the spark out of her voice. And it builds a relationship that looks calm on the outside, but is quietly crumbling from within. Because you can't suppress someone's becoming and still expect to be part of their future. And make no mistake, she will grow, whether you allow space for it or not. Because time does not pause. Life continues to shape her. Her experiences accumulate. Her awareness deepens. And if you're not evolving with her, if you're still trying to hold on to the version of her you met years ago, then the relationship starts to feel more like a museum than a home. A place of preservation, not progress. So, what does it actually mean to love a younger woman well, as an older man? It means letting go of your need to be the authority in every room. It means celebrating her discoveries, even the ones that challenge your worldview. It means realizing that your age does not entitle you to more control. It demands more humility, more self-awareness, more discipline in how you use your influence. It means understanding that while you may have more years, she may have more insight into certain aspects of life. And that's okay. Wisdom is not chronological, it's experiential. And sometimes the wisest thing an older man can do is shut up, listen, and learn from the woman he thought he came to teach. The truth is, if you're with a younger woman, it should be because you see her as your equal, not your project. She is not a girl to be raised. She is a woman to be respected. And if you can't respect her growth, her autonomy, her voice, then you're not protecting her. You're limiting her. And eventually she will wake up to that. She will feel the invisible fence you built around her potential. And once she sees it, she will either start fighting it, or she will walk away from it altogether. Not because she stopped loving you, but because she started loving herself more. So ask yourself this: do I want to be the man who helped her grow into herself, or the one she had to outgrow to find herself?